My name's Stacey Stark, and life dumped on me when my dad died. May of 2007, I was 21, and around 4 o'clock in the morning, really early, my mom came into my room and my sisters and woke us up and told us not to worry, but an ambulance was coming. I heard the EMTs get there in the next room, and I remember my mom asking if he was breathing, and I heard them say, "We're generating a heartbeat, we're generating a pulse." I'm sure I prayed before then, but I remember there in the car praying and saying, "God, I know whatever happened, that you can fix him now. I know you could heal him, so please just heal him." And then my phone rang and my mom called and said that he hadn't made it. And I just remember thinking, this is the kind of thing that happens to other people, not to me. I think for a while I was kind of in shock, because you go through all the logistical stuff afterwards. Like, first of all, there are people over all the time for days and days and days, so that kind of leaves your mind numb and you're occupied. I remember having also moments of just feeling all of a sudden like, this isn't fair, this isn't fair. But a lot of it was just kind of going with the flow, and you're just so busy and just crazy that I just didn't have time to think about it for a long time. Ever since then, I've had a lot of trouble with fear and anxiety. I even had panic attacks, and that's been kind of a day-to-day, take it as I go struggle working through with God. And but I've also learned a lot. Just, it's even impacted Tim and I's marriage in the sense that I think when that happens, you really realize that you can't take things for granted. Like, I assumed my dad was going to be there when I got married, and I assumed he was going to be there when I graduated from college and have kids someday, but he's not. And so with Tim and I, also, I think day to day we realize that that's always a possibility in any relationship. And so as we go through our day to day, I mean, it impacts us a lot just to think of how we want to live our lives and how we want to relate to each other, knowing that any day something could happen. Well, I guess it's been about 2.5 years, and today, I guess a lot has changed and a lot has happened since then. And I'm starting to kind of finally, I don't know when it happened, but finally feel like we've kind of sunk into a new normal. I think it's really hard to think of what I would say to someone, because I think there are a lot of easy Christian platitudes and cliches out there that I heard, like, you'll see him again someday, or God has a plan, or that they're in a better place. And I think those things come from good hearts and good intentions, and sometimes people don't know what to say, but I would have a hard time saying something like that to someone, because even if, I mean, if it is God's plan, but I think that it should be okay for his plan to really hurt sometimes. And you have to realize that and be okay with that. I mean, all I can do is point to the cross and say that all the answers to anyone's questions are there, you know. I mean, I know God loves me, and I know that he's in control, and he was in control at the cross. And on that day, I'm sure it felt like the most horrible thing imaginable. If I had been there, I would have said, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. But today, looking back, of course, that's totally different now. I mean, that was the most incredible thing that ever happened. And even though in a second I would take my dad back, and it was not a fun experience, spiritually, I think looking back now, even 2.5 years after the fact, I can say spiritually is one of the best things that ever happened to me, because my relationship with God is so much different and so much stronger and more authentic than I think it was before then. So I think it's okay to not have all the answers and to not know why something happened and to be upset about it and to be hurt. But I guess at some point, all you can really do is just trust God, and you do know the answers to some questions. You know that he loves you, and you know that it's all going to work out for the best. So even if that's the only thing you can do is just trust those few things, even when nothing else makes sense, then, I mean, you just hang on. I know God would take me through anything else, so.